Hello everybody, this is John Johnston with Corn Nation. I'm going to do a bit here about 2021 Nebraska spring football. We're going to focus on production from the offense, returning production, which when you look at it, it's a little bit of a, it's an issue. Production is, the amount of touchdowns scored, interceptions, turnovers, rushing yardage, receiving yardage. It really feeds into a lot of these prediction systems that people use. For example, how many wins are we going to have? How many losses? So if you look at ESPN's, what's called the Power Index, which I don't think is that good, they use returning production heavily, a lot of those. I think Bill Connolly also does that. ESPN used to be with us at SB Nation, but went on to bigger, better things. They use returning production as a way of measuring how good they think a team is going to be next year. Nebraska is, we're going to need to find some players. And let's just start with a real quick rundown. I'm not going to overview last season because, is it important what we think of ESPN's predictions? Or Bill Connolly? It has to do with morale. I think it does. I think it has to do with discussions we have about fan morale and our morale and how we go into a season and, are preseason rankings important? Yeah, they are. And the reason why they're important is because they give the casual football fan, that wouldn't be you or me, a way of looking at their TV or looking at what they're going to watch. And maybe if they turn on a game and they go, oh, look, it's number 5 versus number 10, they might watch that game. Whereas without a ranking, they're not going to. They're just going to go, oh, those two teams, I don't know anything about them and I don't care. But a ranking does give people, discussion points. It gives us, should be fun. It should be fun. I mean, we love this stuff, so college football should be fun for us, especially Nebraskans. Hasn't really been that much fun. We're getting there. I have faith. I'm that guy that's always optimistic and eternally disappointed in the cold, sick, dark world we live in. Anyway, preseason rankings, I think, they are important for morale, and I think morale is important because I am the only Nebraska media member that worries about your mental health. The only one. Remember that. Scott Frost. 3 losing seasons so far. Record of 12-20. That would be 12 wins and 20 losses. We certainly didn't think we'd be here going into the 4th season. We thought we'd have this thing turned around. Now, last season was a bucket of shit, but it was a bucket of shit for everybody. And Nebraska sometimes looked really good and sometimes looked like you wondered what the fuck was going on with the program. But, Scott Frost comes into this season. If I'm honest, really honest, we got to have improvement this year. We got to get to a bowl game. He has a lot of goodwill because he is a favorite native son. He is the second coming of Tom Osborne. We all kind of looked at that. Maybe don't think that way now, but would he be fired if he wasn't Scott Frost? I hate to think that Nebraska would pull the trigger that quick on anybody. But does he get a bit more grace? Yeah, he gets more grace. Big fucking deal. I don't think it's a good idea for you to continually fire football coaches. Look at Texas. They fired another basketball coach. They fire football coaches all the time. Have they done any good? No. They're still looking for some holy grail where they're shitting out money, paying out people. I don't think it's not conducive to long-term success. And I do think that Scott Frost is putting pieces together, and I do think we're going to be okay going into the future. Let's look at the offense from the rushing perspective. We have our top leading rusher returns, and that's Adrian Martinez. And it doesn't really matter what you think of Adrian Martinez. He produced yardage, and we'll get to him more in the quarterback section. He was our top rusher last year in a season where we went 3-5, and we played only 8 games. We lose Dedrick Mills, we lose Luke McCaffrey, and we lose Wan'Dale Robinson. You could look at two of those players as probably the most two talented players we had on our team last season. Well, they're gone. We need to replace what they did. I think Dedrick Mills is extremely important because Dedrick Mills picked up tough yardage. And right now, when we look at our running backs, we have Ramir Johnson, Ronald Tompkins, Alante Brown, Marvin Scott, I believe, returns. You've got guys that are good. I think that each one of those guys, particularly Ramir Johnson, showed flashes of nice speed and the ability to be that guy that's out in space and moving around and getting the ball and making the big play. So we need a guy like Dedrick Mills that's just going to mash 3rd and 2. And we might have one coming in Marquise Stepp, I believe it is, from USC. He looks like our ground and pound guy. And this spring, what we're going to need to see is, what are these guys? Have these guys gotten better? Who's going to be the guy that's going to be the guy who starts and the guy who's on the field getting yardage on the ground? Because you kind of need a guy. I get the whole running back by committee thing, but, for me, especially other sports writers besides me, they're not that smart. So they need a name to focus on, right? Yeah. But, God, we're going to use the potential. We're going to have to use the word potential so much this year. Because that's pretty much on the offensive side of the ball. What we're going to have to look at is who's going to score touchdowns, who's going to put up yardage, especially out of the backfield. Last year, there's this concept we had at Corn Nation where we asked ourselves, you looked at the basketball team. I hope you watch basketball because I think they're exciting. They didn't do that well, but they're coming together. Seems to be a theme. Teddy Allen was a guy who was a really good basketball player, but he also seemed to consume a lot of the offense. When he played with the offense instead of as Teddy Buckets, hero ball guy, the offense looked like they were moving the ball around, passing, cutting, and they scored points. And you kind of look at last year's offense and you go, okay, did we really just try to stuff more carries and more receptions into Wan'Dale than maybe we should have, and that hurt everybody else's development? Is that a way of making you feel better about him being gone? Yeah, it could be. And it could be complete bullshit because, we do a lot of that. But so does everybody else. Not any different in that regard. Rushing, need to find the rusher. Our guy from USC coming in, hope to God he's that guy. And the other thing is we should always have in mind the idea that you're going to beat up running backs throughout a Big Ten season. So you need a bevy. You need a committee. You need some guys you can rely on as backups because they just get beat up. And so who's going to be that guy? That's the other thing we're going to look at this spring. Now we come to the Nebraska receiving corps, all 238 of them. They can be their own Nebraska marching band. Last year, there were times I said in our podcasts and I don't know, whatever else I did, that I felt like Nebraska, Scott Frost was playing the year almost as if he saw all the games as scrimmages. And one of the reasons I said that is because, my God, we played a lot of receivers. We have a lot of receivers, and we played a lot of them. We played a lot of them to the point that nobody really rose to the top, other than that one guy, Wan'Dale, who left, and he's a big piece of the team that needs to be replaced. But we have a plethora of receivers. And again, the word potential. And I do think it's the receivers that are going to make Scott Frost offense explode, not implode, explode with points galore. Because I am that guy that's eternally optimistic. And Yeah, I said that. So Wan'Dale was our top returning receiver, except that he's not returning. Next up, Austin Allen. Xavier Betts showed flashes of absolute brilliance. Speed was fun to watch. Didn't get the ball a lot. Levi Falk, who got onto the field and caught the ball, and sometimes that's what you needed. He was just a guy that transferred in and he played. And I don't think he made great, big, huge plays, but he made yardage, and that's kind of what counts a lot of times. Travis Vokalek is another guy that you were like, who the hell's this guy? And then he went out and caught the ball and made some plays. Jack Stoll's gone, along with his Muppet. It wasn't a Muppet. It was a mullet. Okay. Dedrick Mills gone. Marcus Fleming showed extreme explosion in like 2-3 games, then left mid-season because he wasn't being utilized enough. Alante Brown, Oliver Martin, Cade Warner gone. Basically, what do we have? Again, we have the P word. Potential. I don't know what you were thinking, you naughty boys. But we have a lot of guys, and somebody needs to be the explosive play guy. We saw Omar Manning on the field very briefly last season. We keep hearing about how great his potential is, but he hasn't played. Another guy, we picked up a transfer who was like the top receiver all over the place in FCS or Montana. Samori Torre, I believe his name is. I hope I'm not butchering that. I have a tendency to butcher names because I'm just shitty at pronouncing everything. But, he's a big receiver that shows a lot of promise. But again, what are we going to look for this season? We're probably going to hear the same platitudes from coaches we always do. He's the best receiver. He's the best player at this position I've ever coached. He's going to be a big thing this year. And we're going to hear that because that's what happens in spring. That's what they say. So what are we looking at? Oh, Chris Hickman's another one that you need to look at. So if I had to bet, I'd say Samari is going to be a big part of our offense this fall. Xavier Betts needs to be a big part of the offense. Omar Manning needs to get on the field and show everybody what he can do. Levi Falk and our tight ends, Travis Vokalek, and I'm missing one, Austin Allen. Those guys we need production out of the receiving game badly. We need points out of the receiving game. Again, like I said earlier, this is where Scott Frost's offense, I do truly believe that I'm not making that up, that this is where we can explode. When Scott Frost came in, he said that line that's now haunted him for 3 years. The rest of the Big Ten needs to adjust their defenses to us. I think this is where it can happen. I still believe in that statement, again, because I'm an eternal optimist, kind of an idiot. But if we can get this going, then we can have 3 or 4 guys that people just can't cover. And you know what I mean? Because normally on a defense, you have like one guy who's a good cornerback or 2 guys that are good cornerbacks. They're your cover guys. And if you can get 3, 4 guys that are receiving threats, even if they're not that flashy, like one tight end that can always catch the ball and make yardage and 2 guys that can be flashy in space, you're going to wreak a lot of havoc in your offense. And that's what I'm looking for out of Scott Frost's offense, is the ability to get multiple people out there on the field in the receiving game who can not only catch the ball, but get the yardage and be productive and score touchdowns, because we kind of need those just slightly. And we're going to move on to the quarterbacks. On to the quarterback position, your favorite, mine too. The cliche is the quarterback always gets too much credit or too much blame. And it's true. On the other hand, when you look at Scott Frost's offense over the last 3 years, you can't help but say that the quarterback position has been the one area which we've been kind of held back the last 2 seasons, and that comes down to one guy. Whether we like it or not, it's Adrian Martinez. I like the kid. He never throws anybody under the bus. He seems very mature. He's well-spoken. He seems like an incredibly great guy. It's just that when he gets on the field, sometimes his decision-making and his ability to execute passing just fucking is all over the place, like his passes. I mean, it's not Joe Bosserman bad, if you remember that graphic from the Ohio State game where we came back and beat them. But you could clearly tell sometimes last season where he just had open receivers and the ball would fly 30 yards over their head, or the ball would he'd short arm it. There's probably not... Listen, we've been looking for quarterbacks for 30 years, 20 years, I don't know. Tom Osborne looked for one for fucking 20 years, and then he found Tommy Fraser. I mean, he had Turner Gill, who was just exceptional and beautiful to watch, but Tom Osborne went through this stuff too, where he had quarterbacks that were really, really good, but they weren't just that guy to get over the edge and into national title territory. And we have to find a quarterback. Adrian has to come through this year because we know that he has the physical skills. We know that he can play football. We know that he can run, and he can be an incredible threat. And he kind of has to do that this year because we really need to see wins. And the other reason is because there ain't shit behind him. I mean, there isn't. Luke is gone. Luke took the force, left with him, went Louisville, some fucking place. Did I say Wan'Dale was at Louisville earlier? I think he went to Kentucky. Wherever, whatever. We got Logan Smothers is the next quarterback up. And listen, let me say this about Adrian. If you're like, I don't want to ever see Adrian Martinez play again, well, think about the fact that if he does get injured and can't play, you're really going to want him on the field because we have zero experience on the field behind him. We have the P word potential in Logan Smothers, whom we've never seen play, and that's it. Behind him, we have Heinrich Harburg, whose name we're going to butcher to death on Corn Nation, and we're going to enjoy the shit right out of that. Heinrich Hengelmeek, Harry Herberger. You know that we're going to destroy that because behind Heinrich Harburg is Matt Mesker, a name we've already butchered to death. Mark Minkmaker. And then behind him is Braden Miller. And listen, this lineup of quarterbacks, I hope Adrian stays healthy. I hope Adrian brings his stuff together. And I hope that Adrian can play really good football this year. And I hope that Logan Smothers is a good quarterback. There's so much hope and potential in these statements. In terms of returning production, I mean, did we lose a lot when Luke McCaffrey left? I think that the more you saw him, the more you realized he really was either not ready to play quarterback or he wasn't going to be a quarterback. Scott Frost seems to be a guy who wants to bring his quarterback specifically along. It's not, I don't want to say slowly, but almost like he's cuddling them. Not true with Adrian. But a lot of times we hear from Scott Frost, I almost said Scott, like we're on a first name basis. It's almost like he says the phrase that this guy or that guy wasn't ready to be on the field yet. The time for that shit's really coming to an end. If you got guys that can play, they need to get on the field. And if your offense is so complex that nobody can understand it, every offense has plays that everybody can execute. In the NFL, they always talk about this quarterback going to this other place or running back coming into another team or receiver. They all run the same fucking offense pretty much in the NFL. They have for years. They just changed the nomenclature. Those guys are professionals. They can spend as many hours as they want looking that stuff up. But you'll hear once, well, he has to get used to the offense. Bullshit. If you have a star receiver that comes in as a free agent and he's going to walk out on the field and play, there aren't that many different. The receiver tree route is this is it, okay? See this right here? That's how many routes receivers run. There's 9. This isn't an endless possibility of the neurons that are in your brain. It shouldn't be that difficult for guys to pick up. Because I don't believe that if you got into college to play college football that you're a fucking moron. So at some point you got to look at them and go, did you not have 3 plays? And listen, I get that every week you look at an opponent and you put together a scheme to create mismatches and all that shit that goes into that. But you got to have 3-4 plays that a guy can walk on the field and run without that much thought because he knows what's going on. I don't care if you call him in the huddle. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the part that I find frustrating. I mean, Bill Callahan, that fuckhead, he had this offense that had a 750,000 page playbook, and it was so complex. What's the point of that if nobody can execute it? And that's what we've seen from Nebraska so far, I think, and under Scott Frost's tenure, is we've seen football where the offense was supposed to be the thing that exploded and scored 40 points a game, something I'm still looking for, and we sure as hell has not scored anywhere close to 40 points a game throughout Scott Frost's tenure. So maybe you need to figure that part out. It's not just about the guys you're putting on the field. Maybe it's you motherfucker. Because this year, we need wins. I don't think Scott Frost needs to be fired this year. But if we go like 2-10 or something, yeah, pretty much be done. But we need to get to a bowl game this year. That's it. For my mental health, probably nobody gives a shit about that. For everybody who loves Nebraska football's mental health, for the good of the state, win some fucking games. Okay. I hope you all doing well. I hope that, it sounds like things are easing up, at least from a societal point of view, not necessarily from an infection point of view. Everybody's getting vaccinated. The CDC director comes out and says she has a feeling of impending doom. What the fuck is that about? It's really dumb. Do you have impending doom feelings when you go to the grocery store? This is a common thought for you? Is this something you say in public? I feel like impending doom. Is there a meteor headed toward Earth that nobody's told us about? I have no idea why a public official would say, I have a feeling of impending doom. Do you have a feeling about impending doom about Nebraska football this year? Let me know. Leave some comments. Send me an email. Find me on Twitter. All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.